This is Sustainable Future, a Zero to Civ student sustainability workshop. My name is Paul Nix. I'm going to be taking you through this workshop personally, and hopefully I'll be able to get some feedback from you in our comments and hear from you about how you'd want to proceed. The first real question is, what is needed for human civilization? Take a second to think about it. Of course, you've got basic things: food, water, shelter. But there's more than that, and there are a lot of things to dig into. Emotional health, interconnected resource management. There are all kinds of things that you would need. But take a second, make yourself a small list. Go ahead and pull out a piece of paper and a pen. It'll be useful to you. Write down the top 10 things that you think are needed for human civilization. If you'd like, go ahead and pause the video, and then when you're ready, unpause. Okay, excellent. And now that you've got a few of these together, I want you to look at that list and I want you to think about what you need if that civilization has to last. Maybe let's look at it in terms of 20 years, a lifetime, 5 lifetimes, then maybe think about 1,000 years. What would you need to be doing differently with all of those human needs if you expected civilization to really last, and if you wanted it to? Go ahead and take a few seconds. Think it out, and compare with anybody you might be working with. All right. This is session 1 of Sustainable Future, Human Needs. And in it, we'll be talking about more than just what you need to start a human civilization and maintain it. We'll be talking about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We'll be talking about emotional health, which is one of those essential things needed. And we'll be talking about what sustainability really means. In the long run, this is meant to be partnered with our workshop to create your own sustainability project. If you guys have interest, I want you guys to reach out. But for now, please join us as we review the UN Sustainability Goals. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as you can see here, are pretty extensive. You've got 17 different specific goals. They want to eliminate poverty, eliminate hunger. They want to establish good health and well-being for everyone, quality education for everyone, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy sources, decent work for everyone, and expectation of economic growth, along with industry, innovation, and infrastructure, reduction of inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, and responsible consumption and production. Additionally, you've got climate action, life below the water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnerships for those goals. Now, this is a lot. If you're looking at it, then you'll see that these are very, very complex problems. Each one of these is not necessarily an easy thing to tackle on its own. So let's look a little bit harder at how they're interconnected and why they matter. When you break up these different goals, you'll notice that they fit into a few different categories. Some of them are economic. Some of them are societal. For example, poverty, inequality, healthcare. And some of them relate directly to our ecosystems or our biospheres, life on land, below the water. Now, as you can see, they're separated into these different rings. Now, if you were to imagine these rings moving, for example, if you were to start with society, and you were to start pushing along all of those different points related to society. If you start spinning that ring and you're actually paying attention not to necessarily upset things with the other problems, with the other rings, then what you would end up doing over time is starting to move those other rings as well. Because if you are sustainably reducing poverty, if you are sustainably reducing inequality and the social pressures that cause people to put more pressure on their economies, then you can start spinning all of these rings together and gain momentum. Not only that, by reaching out from the goal that matters to you most to the other goals that it touches, you can start to look a little harder at those partnerships for the goals. Number 17. Those partnerships are going to be the thing that make the difference, because all of us really have a very different word in mind when we think of the word sustainability. It means something different to each of us. Some of us think of the climate, some of us think of the oceans, some of us think of plastic, some of us think of food or poverty. This is understandable. All of us are going to have something different close to our heart. But what you want to be able to do is look at how your work on what matters to you can help impact your entire community and can help relate to those other goals, so that your classmates, your friends, people in your community who care about those other goals can work with you, work together, and start solving problems. When we talk about sustainability, and when we talk about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, one of the things we need to keep in mind is how complex each of these problems is individually, and the fact that together they're what we call a wicked problem. If you're looking at things systemically, using what's called systemic thought processes, then you start to notice that some problems are deeply interconnected with others. That's exactly the way it is with these Sustainable Development Goals. Each problem is deeply interconnected with the others, making them wicked problems. Now, wicked problems are not easy to solve, because any work that you do to solve one aspect of the problem can complicate things for other aspects. So it's not something anyone can do alone. And that's not necessarily going to be easy to deal with, but that doesn't mean it should stop us. In fact, all of the pressure to strike for the future seems to be telling me, and everyone in society, that there is motivation to start solving these problems actively and professionally. And that's what we're going to be doing. By starting to look at these Sustainable Development Goals as grouped sets, you can then start to see how they interconnect. If you start to work for life on land, for example, you're going to be immediately impacting life in the water because they are interconnected. When you look at climate action, that relies on both life on land and life in the water, because there is an awful lot of climate action that depends on how well our plant life, our trees, the algae in the ocean, can actually process carbon dioxide into a physical form, taking it out of the air and making plants effectively by fixing the carbon into a physical state and then making it into food, or making it into a part of the soil, making it into a product like wood that can be used industrially. You're starting to solve the problems of climate action, but you can't do it alone. So breaking these up can allow you to better look things over. Anytime you ever need to refresh yourself on what these individual goals are, what they mean, and how your communities are starting to deal with them, it's just a Google search away. Look up UN SDGs, and you'll find not only these lists, but a bunch of resources provided by the UN to start solving these problems and to start banding together as communities. If you know of local businesses that aren't doing their part, you can always call out to them and ask them how they're meeting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I know it's a lot to necessarily put on somebody, but by starting the conversation, you can start to make change. So now that we've briefly gone over the UN Sustainable Development Goals, I'd like you to think about one of those other things that we need. And it's mentioned in some of those Sustainable Development Goals. When you talk about poverty, medicine, equality, these are all issues that directly impact our emotional health. And emotional health is absolutely necessary if you're going to make any kind of significant changes. I want you to consider for a moment. Consider how difficult it is to get anything done when you are really, really down, when you're really, really afraid, when you're really overwhelmed with anxiety, and you're expected to go on and do an assignment, do a performance, do something in front of people. Do you even want to interact with people when you're feeling low? I know I don't. But this is a part of what emotional health means, and a part of what emotional intelligence is. All it is, really, if you look at emotional intelligence, is our ability to understand our own emotions and those of other people in order to further our goals. That's all it is. By being empathetic, by reaching out to others, by bolstering them, you can also be affecting your own emotional health. But let's go into a little more detail and find out why we would spend any time on emotional health at all. I know it's not an easy thing to just say, be emotionally healthy. That's not how it works. But let's start by looking at the benefits of proper emotional health. First off, resisting addictions, either online or in real life, is much easier with well-sustained emotional health. Not only that, you actually boost your actual health. It turns out that all of us are affected by a degree of the placebo effect. Now, this means that when we feel good, our bodies respond and go out of their way to act good. It's a little strange, but it actually works. Statistically, it's quite relevant. Of course, self-esteem is a huge bonus. Being able to go out and do what you want to do with pride, being able to meet people, being able to believe in your projects, your value, and what you're doing. It's important. Not only that, they've also done studies that have shown that not only are people less likely to be bullied if they have appropriate emotional health, they're also less likely to do any bullying when they're emotionally healthy. Incidences drop significantly as emotional health increases. Last and most importantly, motivation. This is part of what I was talking about. When you're emotionally healthy, you can act. Now, what does that mean? If you think about it, when we're afraid, there's an instinct to hide, to wait out the storm. And a lot of times that's actually kind of useful. If something's chasing after you, then hiding, not bad. It'll probably get bored and go somewhere else. But with the kind of problems that we're facing in our communities and on our planet, hiding and waiting, it doesn't work. That's what people have effectively been doing for the last few generations. We knew about these problems. We knew and had evidence of a lot of the different sustainability problems that have developed currently. But nothing was done because it's easier to pretend it's not there and hide and wait. I get that. It's an easy instinct. It's a bit selfish, but people are like that sometimes. We don't have that luxury anymore. As we can see with COVID, times change. But one of the few benefits of COVID is that it has put a little bit more time back on the clock for all of us. Sustainably speaking, we've been using a lot less of our infrastructure, and our point of no return has been pushed back a ways. This is something that we absolutely can't afford to neglect. So let's see what it takes to be emotionally healthy. And one method of doing some quick assessment and setting some goals and values for yourself. Because the way I see it, setting goals and values helps to affect your initial motivation, and helping that initial motivation can help you to set emotionally healthy habits that can start to push back against anxiety and depression. It's no silver bullet, but it's a starting point. And when you're low, that's what you need. A place to start and a support network that you can build. So let's get started. I have 3 questions that I keep in mind, and I usually ask these of people who I meet. I'm not a big fan of little questions. There are loads of them. How's the weather? How are you feeling? How are your folks? They're important questions, but they're little. People don't expect an actual honest answer. Now, the big questions, that's where it gets fun. So I'm going to ask you a couple of big questions, and I want you to be ready to pause the video when you need to in order to answer them, in order to think about them, and just unpause when you're ready to go. Question number 1. Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning and you have a few missed phone calls. You've got a couple of emails. They're all coming from a law firm. A little strange, but you look into it and you call them back. It turns out that someone has died. It's unfortunate. You didn't know them, but they knew you, or at least of you, maybe through your family, maybe through someone you know. For whatever reason, this person, we shall not speak ill of them, they left an incredible sum of money in a series of trusts. It's all very legal and above board. They left effectively everything in place so that whether you like it or not, you're going to be getting money every week for the rest of your life. Not enough so that you'll be able to go out and buy a mega yacht or something crazy like that right off the bat, but enough that you can pay off debts, enough that you can, not have to worry about any new appliances or anything else you might need, enough so that you could live comfortably on your own, and enough so that you won't ever really have to worry about having a job ever again. You can do what you want. So now, what do? There's the question. Now that you've got unlimited resources, what is it you do with your time? Hopefully you've taken a second to really think this out. But whatever your answer is, it's acceptable. Whether you want to travel, whether you want to put together a foundation, whatever it is that you want to do, if you want to teach, if you want to go out and do something anyway, carpentry, building, what have you, it's okay. They're all acceptable answers. And you can ask yourself this question every single day and maybe get a slightly different answer. We'll go over the meaning behind the question a little later. But for now, let's go ahead and head straight into the next question. You ready? Okay, so you're finishing out your day. And you know what? It's been a good day, but you're just finishing brushing your teeth. And you set down your toothbrush and you turn around, and right there in your home in front of you is a creature, a being, the like of which you have never seen before. Now, you know right away, somehow, that this being means you no harm. You know right away that this being is a teacher. And you know right away, somehow, that it has come an extremely long distance to teach you everything that there is to know about any one subject in the entire universe. Now, it can be anything at all, as I said, big or small. You're going to immediately learn everything there is about that topic. All you have to do is choose. So, what do you want to learn about now? And again, pause the video if you need to. Take your time. Now, whatever it is you chose to learn, it is absolutely valid, and that's okay. And this is, again, something that may change from day to day, from week to week. Ask yourself often, what do I want to learn about? And I'll talk to you about the meaning of that in just a moment. But first, the last question. And in many ways, the only question. This is the big one. You ready? All right. You finished out a big project, and you're very proud of how it's turned out. You're happy with the work that you've done. You know that you're in a good place. You know that your family's in a good place. Everything seems okay for the foreseeable future. And you know, you've put a lot into this. So you walk outside for a moment and you stretch and you look up at the sky. Beautiful stars out tonight. And at that moment, you feel a pinch in your chest and you drop to the ground and you see yourself growing smaller and smaller, and you see your city growing smaller and smaller, and the shape of your continent growing smaller and smaller, until finally you're alone out among the stars looking at a beautiful blue marble floating in space. That world that you're no longer a part of, it's still spinning without you. And that's sad. But before you poof, go off to heaven or reincarnate or just disappear from existence or whatever it is that happens next, you know that at this moment, you can change any one thing about that world that you left behind. It can be big or small. It can be abstract or concrete. It does not matter. Whatever it is you want, you can change it right now. Go ahead and take your time. Pause the video if you have to. But what is it that is important enough to be the one thing that you change about the world? Very good. You've taken your time and you've chosen. Whatever it is you chose, again, it's not up to me or anyone else to judge. Let's go into the meaning of those questions. Those three questions, when you break them down, come down to very simple things. One of them, what would you do with unlimited money, unlimited resources? That's really asking what it is about yourself that you value. Do you like the way you interact with others? Do you like your endless curiosity about culture or food? Do you like talking to people? Do you like being alone? Do you like writing or reading or creating? Any of those things are acceptable, but with all of them, you now have a clue about how you like to interact with the world best, how you see yourself. And if this is something that you don't necessarily like, that's okay. It's something that you can improve over time. Make yourself more of what you value about yourself. And every time you answer that first question, make sure that you answer it a little bit differently. Make sure that you look at things a little bit differently so that you can assess your own value differently. That way, over time, you'll be growing. You'll be seeing more parts of yourself that you didn't before. And you'll be more conscious of them when you're actually interacting with other people or doing those things. Next, that question about what you'd want to learn from the strange alien creature in your home, that weird being, that's really asking what is worth your time. People always say that time is money, but that's not true. Time is much more valuable than money. Money comes and goes, but time, you only ever get that once. So when you're, let's say, watching TV and a commercial comes on, you're basically giving the company that paid for that commercial a part of your life. Why do that? There's no reason for it. And honestly, our economy being so reliant on commercials is kind of a joke. Let's actually focus on value more, once again, and see about what is worth your time. Whatever it is, whether it's improbable aeronautics or chaos theory, or maybe just amazing kinds of manufacturing or unboxing videos. It could just be unboxing videos. Maybe you really like them. Fantastic. That's where you should focus. Dig into the why that you value those things, and dig into all that you need to in order to learn more about them, in order to really dig into them. in order to create yourself. That is what you do once you know what is worth your time. Next, as I said, that last question, the final question any of us really have to answer. It's the key of most philosophical arguments. What do you want to do before you die? Effectively asks, what will you change about the world? The Boy Scouts have a motto. They talk about, well, they have several mottos, but they talk about leaving a place in better condition than you found it. This is just how they like to interact with a campsite, with any place that they visit, or any group they interact with. They want to leave the place better than they found it. That's all sustainability is. When you look at it, whatever it is that bothers you about the world, that's what you need to be fighting to change. Whether it's inequality, whether it even relates to any of those UN Sustainable Development Goals or not, that's what you need to work on. Once you do, you're going to be happier. You're going to feel more fulfilled. That's simply how we work. Effectively, what you've done is you've broken down your core properties like an engineer. You're looking at what it is that makes you up and how you tick. And knowing that makes it a little bit easier to interact and a lot easier to bolster your own emotional health. By knowing this, you can also be honest in your interactions with other people and say, you know what? Just staring at this wall all day, isn't that fun? Just hanging out is nice, but have you guys ever wanted to try doing this other thing? Great, go, do it, take a chance. If they don't like it, fine. You'll find people who do, and you'll connect to people who are willing to give it a shot, whether they think they like it or not. That's the key to growth, and growth is the key to emotional health. Keep growing, keep changing, and keep playing. Next, let's look a little harder at modularity. I call this unit that you're learning in right now a module. Why work with modules? The whole idea is that any given module, just like the cube that we see here, could be swapped in for another cube like it. That way, you have a sort of a standard set. Those standards are what I want to talk about right here. Now, when you're working on anything, if you can make a smaller version of it, a prototype, that's always useful. It helps you think about how the problem can actually be solved. You make a model, maybe out of clay. Maybe you do some cardboard prototyping. Maybe you just make a drawing on paper or on your phone. That's fine. Maybe you just write some notes about what the thing should be, what it should look like. What you've done is made a sort of a basic framework. Now, when you can use the same kinds of resources and swap out solutions, you have a degree of modularity. Have everything fit into one shape. That's perfect. By setting those standards, and especially setting those standards when you're looking at things like those sustainable development goals, you make something that can be reproduced. Now, that is the key in modularity. If you can reproduce it or make more of it and grow your solution to the scale of a problem, then you win. That's where you can get more people involved. People will see what's been done initially. Maybe you'll put out a TikTok about what you're doing. Great, fantastic. Spread the word. But then, if they want to get involved, you can also show how it's done. You can make sure that they can connect to you, get a hold of all of the resources that they would need to do the same thing on their own. There's a beauty in that, and that beauty is what we call modularity. It makes a problem easily broken down into bite-sized pieces, and it allows you to start fixing those problems actively. So what is it that we've talked about today? We've gone over, in a degree of detail, things to do with sustainability, starting with human needs, what you need to create civilization, what you need to do to look at that over time. Then we broke down the UN Sustainable Development Goals. so that we can look at them individually and so that we can start looking at them as interconnected sets, which is absolutely essential to actively solving those problems. We then started looking at emotional health and how emotional health can impact our ability to move forward, to start solving problems, and to make changes for ourselves, for our communities, and for the world. Now, I want you to ask yourself, with everything that you've picked up now and everything that you already know, what does it mean to be sustainable? Take your time in thinking about it. Feel free to jot down your answers, and if you'd like, comment them to this video. I would love to hear back from all of you, and I want all of you to be able to reach out if you'd like to see more of what we're doing with Zero to Civ, and if you'd like to participate in the adjoining workshop. So, this session, session 1, Human Needs, links to our introductory Create Your Own Sustainability project, in which you will not only be able to grab a small group of people, start breaking down the problems that matter to you, sort of how we've looked at things through this video, but you'll also be able to start designing your own sustainability project. This is meant to be a 3-week session with 1 session and workshop component happening each week. That way, by the time you get to week 3, you're ready to present and pitch that workshop idea to your local community, your school, people in your local area that actually have the resources and funding to contribute. So please make sure that you reach out to us and see how you want to move forward. You can see here a link to what we're doing at the Time Repair Corporation. If you want to know more about what we're doing or how our partners, the Canadian Open Learning Academy, Enlighten Energy Systems, or the Pascal Academy, have been involved, please follow our link, check things out, and tell parents, students, and teachers that you know about what we're doing, because we're looking to do pilots all over the world. This project is built on Finnish educational standards and is meant to make those standards and the benefits of them easily adoptable anywhere in the world. So please, touch base. I'll see you all next time, and hopefully we'll have a much more sustainable future to look forward to. Goodbye for now.